She thought I was building houses. I was building an empire. I never imagined that discovering my wife's betrayal would lead to inheriting the largest construction empire in Arizona. There, I sat in my dusty F-150, parked outside a half-finished medical complex in Phoenix, staring at a text message that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Girls' night at Miranda's. Don't wait up, honey. Love you. My name is Cameron Pierce, and for the past 14 years, I've worked my way up through construction project management across the greater Phoenix metropolitan area. I know exactly what crosses your mind when you hear that. Hard hat, work boots, the guy who shows up before dawn and leaves after sunset with concrete dust embedded under his fingernails and steel shavings in his hair. Every morning at 5:15 a.m. sharp, I pull on my Carhartt work jeans, lace up steel-toed Wolverine boots that have walked thousands of job sites from Scottsdale to Chandler, and fire up my F-150 to drive to whatever project needs my expertise. My job involves coordinating subcontractors who speak 3 different languages, ensuring building codes are met down to the last quarter-inch tolerance, managing construction timelines that would make a NASA mission planner weep with frustration, and solving structural problems that didn't exist 5 minutes ago, but somehow threatened to shut down a $1 million project. To most people sitting in their climate-controlled offices, sipping their $7 lattes, I'm just another blue-collar guy who builds the structures they work inside, shop inside, live inside. But to me, this work represents something deeper than a paycheck. It's proof that I can create something permanent and meaningful with my hands and mind, provide for my family without compromising my integrity, and maintain my self-respect in a world that increasingly values appearance over substance, flash over foundation. The work isn't easy, and I won't pretend otherwise for 1 second. Phoenix summers regularly hit 118 degrees, and I've spent countless brutal hours in that blazing heat, watching concrete cure properly and overseeing steel beam installations while my shirt becomes completely soaked with sweat before 8 a.m. My hands are scarred from metal edges and power tool accidents. My lower back aches most evenings from climbing scaffolding to inspect structural details that could mean the difference between a building standing for 50 years or collapsing in the next earthquake. But there's this particular satisfaction that comes from watching a building rise from absolutely nothing because of plans you've managed, decisions you've made, problems you've solved under impossible pressure. Seeing families move into housing developments you've overseen from foundation pour to final walkthrough. Watching businesses open their doors in commercial spaces you've helped create from architectural drawings. My grandfather, Old Henry Pierce, used to sit on his weathered porch in Tucson and tell me that a man's worth isn't measured by his bank balance or the fancy letters printed after his name on some business card. He'd lean back in that creaky chair and say, "Cameron, it's measured by what he builds that lasts longer than he does, and whether he can look himself straight in the mirror each night knowing he earned what he's got." I believed those words completely, let them guide every choice I made, every project I took on. Unfortunately, my wife Sophia never saw things quite that way, not even remotely close. Sophia came from what you might diplomatically call an aspirational background. Her family wasn't exactly wealthy, but they had always prioritized maintaining appearances over building substance. When we met during my final semester at Arizona State University, she claimed to love my work ethic and practical approach to life. She said she was absolutely exhausted by entitled fraternity boys who'd never worked a real day in their pampered lives, never understood what it meant to earn something through sweat and determination. I believed every single word she said, thought I'd finally found someone who shared my values about honest work and building something meaningful together. For the first several years of our marriage, things seemed genuinely solid between us. We got married right after graduation in a simple ceremony at a small church in Tempe, bought a modest 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood, and I genuinely thought we were building a partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. But everything shifted dramatically after Sophia started her interior design business and began working with wealthy clients in Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, and those ridiculous gated communities where houses start at $2 million. Suddenly, my solid middle-class income wasn't something to be proud of anymore. It became a source of deep embarrassment for her, something she had to constantly explain away or apologize for in front of her new social circle. She started constantly comparing me to her clients' husbands, measuring me against men I'd never met but somehow always fell short of. There was Preston Sterling, some tech executive who drove a Porsche Cayenne Turbo and owned vacation homes in both Aspen and La Jolla that he visited maybe twice a year. Then Austin Morrison, a private equity partner who just bought a custom home in Silverleaf for $8.5 million, complete with a golf simulator and wine cellar that cost more than most people's houses. And Grant Hendricks, who supposedly made so much money trading commodities and cryptocurrency that he retired at 37 and now spends his time collecting vintage motorcycles and racing expensive cars at private tracks. Sophia would return home from client meetings and consultation appointments, look at me like I was a permanent stain on her carefully curated lifestyle. The way she'd sigh heavily when I walked through our front door smelling like sawdust, steel, and honest sweat. The obvious eye rolls when I'd mention working overtime to secure a project completion bonus. The cutting comments about how successful men provided certain lifestyles for their wives. How our friends never worried about money for vacations or home improvements. I noticed every slight, every disappointed glance, every moment of barely concealed contempt she thought I didn't see. But I kept telling myself that marriage meant weathering rough patches together, that love required patience and understanding, that eventually she'd remember why she fell for me in the first place, and things would return to normal between us. I was wrong about that, spectacularly and painfully wrong. So, when that text message came through on a Tuesday evening in late September, claiming she was having girls' night at Miranda's house in Chandler, something felt immediately wrong. Miranda was Sophia's college roommate, who worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm, lived in a modest townhouse, and typically went to bed by 9:30 on weeknights. Not exactly the type for late-night festivities or wild parties that would keep anyone out past 10 p.m. I'd been working late at a commercial development project in North Scottsdale, trying to resolve some permit complications with the city inspector before the next morning's concrete pour for the foundation. We were already 2 days behind schedule, and delays in construction cost serious money, sometimes thousands of dollars per day in labor, equipment rental, and penalty clauses. The text felt off somehow, too casual and convenient. Maybe it was 14 years of managing construction projects that taught me to trust my instincts when details don't add up properly. Instead of driving straight home to our empty house in Tempe, I decided to take what I told myself was just a quick detour past Miranda's neighborhood. Just to ease my mind, I rationalized. Just to confirm everything was normal, and I was being paranoid for no good reason. Miranda's house was completely dark when I drove slowly past. No cars in the narrow driveway except her silver Honda Civic. No signs of any gathering, no lights in the windows, no indication that anyone was even home, much less hosting a girls' night with wine and gossip. That's when pieces of a puzzle I hadn't realized I was solving started falling into place with sickening clarity. All those mysterious business dinners with wealthy clients that seemed to run much longer than any legitimate business dinner should. The expensive new clothes she claimed were networking investments for building her client base. The way she'd suddenly started guarding her phone like it contained classified government secrets, taking it with her to the bathroom, sleeping with it under her pillow. The sudden passionate interest in yoga classes that seemed to run much, longer than any yoga class I'd ever heard of, sometimes lasting 4 or 5 hours on weekends. The unexplained charges on our credit card for restaurants I'd never been to, located in parts of Phoenix where neither of us had any business being. I spent the next 4 days conducting my own methodical investigation. 14 years of project management teaches you to be systematic, to gather all the facts before drawing conclusions, to document everything carefully. I started following her at a safe distance when she left for these mysterious appointments, keeping track of patterns and locations. The first time I followed her, she drove to the same stunning location, a modern architectural masterpiece perched on the mountainside in Paradise Valley, probably worth more than I'd make in 20 years. The house belonged to Preston Sterling, the same tech executive she'd mentioned countless times, the same man whose sophisticated taste and incredible eye for design she'd praised endlessly during dinner conversations that left me feeling smaller each time. The second time I followed her, 3 days later, she met Sterling at an upscale steakhouse in Old Town Scottsdale, the kind of place where appetizers cost more than I typically spend on lunch for an entire week. They sat at an intimate corner table, and from my position across the restaurant, I could see this wasn't any kind of business meeting. The way she leaned toward him when he spoke, touched his hand when she laughed, looked around nervously before kissing him goodbye in the parking lot. The third time I followed her, on a Friday evening, everything became crystal clear in the most devastating way possible. She drove to Sterling's Paradise Valley mansion again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Expensive cars began arriving around 7 p.m. BMW, Mercedes, Tesla, Maserati, even a Lamborghini, all driven by men in their 40s and 50s, the type who wore Italian suits and Swiss watches that cost more than my annual truck payments. And there was Sophia, stepping out of her own car wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payment. She wasn't dressed for interior design consultation or business networking. She was dressed for seduction, for impressing wealthy men who had everything I didn't, everything she'd made clear she desperately wanted. I watched her greet Sterling at his front door with the kind of familiarity that made my stomach turn violently, the way she touched his chest when she laughed, the way she looked around cautiously before disappearing inside that house full of wealthy men who could provide the lifestyle I never could. I sat in my truck for nearly 3 hours, parked across the street with a clear view of those massive floor-to-ceiling windows, watching shadows move around inside, music playing, drinks flowing, my wife socializing intimately with men who represented everything she'd told me was missing from our marriage. Men with real ambition, real success, real money to spend on the finer things in life. Around 10:30 p.m., I couldn't take watching anymore. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through neighborhoods where normal people lived normal lives, where marriages weren't falling apart because of social climbing and materialistic obsession. I sat in our living room, staring at the walls I'd painted myself, the furniture we'd bought together when money was tight, the framed photos of what I'd foolishly thought was a happy marriage built on mutual respect and shared values. That's exactly when my phone rang, shattering the oppressive silence. Unknown number, but something told me to answer anyway. Cameron Pierce? The voice was gravelly, authoritative, unmistakably familiar despite the late hour. I recognized it immediately, though I hadn't heard it in nearly 18 months. Vincent Brennan? What can I do for you, sir? Vincent was the founder and owner of Brennan Construction, the largest commercial building company in the entire Southwest. I'd worked several major projects as a subcontractor for his outfit over the past 8 years, always delivered on time and under budget, earned a reputation for solving impossible problems when other project managers threw up their hands and quit. Vincent had taken what seemed like a personal interest in my career progression, almost like having a mentor who watched from a distance. He'd occasionally show up unannounced at job sites I was managing, walk around asking pointed questions about structural decisions and timeline management, then disappear without explanation. I'd always assumed he was just keeping tabs on his subcontractor's performance. I think it's time we had a serious conversation, son. Face to face. There's something important you need to know, something I should have told you years ago. It's pretty late, Mr. Brennan. Can't this wait until tomorrow morning? Trust me, Cameron, after what you witnessed tonight at Sterling's house, sleep isn't going to come easy anyway. Meet me at the office downtown. I'll be waiting in the conference room. My blood ran cold. How could Vincent possibly know where I'd been tonight, what I'd discovered? I hadn't told anyone about following Sophia, hadn't shared my suspicions with friends or family. The idea that someone had been watching me while I was watching my wife felt deeply unsettling. I drove to Brennan Construction's headquarters in downtown Phoenix, my mind racing with questions that multiplied faster than I could process them. The 30-story building was completely dark, except for Vincent's corner office on the 28th floor, where warm light spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. I found him sitting behind his massive mahogany desk, 2 glasses of what looked like expensive bourbon already poured and waiting. Vincent Brennan was 74 years old, built like a retired linebacker who'd stayed in decent shape, with steel gray hair and pale blue eyes that had witnessed every kind of construction disaster and human betrayal imaginable over 5 decades in this business. He'd built his company from absolutely nothing, starting with residential framing jobs in the 1970s and growing it into the largest commercial construction operation west of Texas. Everyone in the Phoenix construction industry knew Vincent's reputation for integrity, fair dealing, and an almost supernatural ability to spot potential in young workers that others overlooked completely. "Sit down, Cameron." He gestured toward the leather chair across from his desk and slid one glass of bourbon in my direction. "You look like you've seen something that changed your perspective on life permanently." "How did you know where I was tonight, Vincent? How could you possibly know what I witnessed?" Vincent leaned back in his executive chair and opened his desk drawer, pulling out a thick manila envelope sealed with his company logo. "Cameron, I've been in this business for 52 years. I've learned to keep careful track of good men, especially when they're being systematically destroyed by people who don't appreciate their genuine worth." He set the envelope on his desk, but didn't open it yet. "I've been watching you much longer and much more closely than you realize. Not just your work performance, though. That's been consistently exceptional. I've been watching how you handle pressure when everything's falling apart, how you treat your crews when deadlines seem impossible, how you solve structural problems that would stump engineers with advanced degrees." Vincent stood up and walked to his window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out over the Phoenix skyline that he'd helped shape with 4 decades of construction projects. "Most importantly, I've been watching how that woman treats you, how she's been systematically undermining your confidence and self-worth for years now." My hands were trembling as I reached for the bourbon, needing something to steady my nerves. "What are you talking about, Vincent?" "Your wife's been playing house with Sterling and his wealthy circle for 8 months now. Private parties, weekend trips to Sedona and Flagstaff, shopping expeditions to Los Angeles and San Francisco, all funded by men who think they can buy anything they want, including other men's wives." Vincent opened the manila envelope and spread professional surveillance photographs across his polished desk, high-quality images showing Sophia entering Sterling's house, leaving expensive hotels with different men, shopping with credit cards that definitely weren't mine or ours. The evidence was overwhelming, humiliating, and completely undeniable. "Why are you showing me this? Why have you been having my wife followed?" Vincent returned to his chair and looked directly into my eyes with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. "Because you remind me of myself 45 years ago, Cameron. Good man married to a woman who couldn't see his potential, couldn't appreciate what she had. The difference is, I didn't have anyone looking out for me when my world completely fell apart. I had to rebuild everything from scratch, alone." He paused and took a measured sip of his bourbon. "I've been planning my retirement for 3 years now, looking carefully for the right person to take over this company, someone with unshakable integrity, proven work ethic, and the intelligence to grow what I've built into something even more substantial and lasting." Vincent reached into his desk drawer again and pulled out a second, larger envelope, this one sealed with red wax bearing his personal seal. "Inside this envelope are ownership transfer documents, Cameron. Brennan Construction, all our current contracts worth $47 million, our equipment fleet, our reputation, our client relationships, everything I've spent 5 decades building from nothing. It's yours if you want it." I stared at him like he'd completely lost his mind. "Vincent, I can't possibly afford to buy a construction company this size." "You're not buying anything. I'm giving it to you. The only price is a promise that you'll treat the people who work for us with the same respect you've always shown, that you'll continue building projects that matter to communities, and that you'll remember where you came from when you're sitting in this office making decisions that affect hundreds of families." My head was spinning like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. "I don't understand, Vincent. Why me? You must know dozens of qualified project managers, people with business degrees and management experience." Vincent sat back down and looked me directly in the eyes with unwavering intensity. "Because in 14 years of working with hundreds of contractors, subcontractors, and project managers throughout Arizona, you're the only one who's never cut corners to meet a deadline, never lied to cover up mistakes, never treated workers like disposable equipment that can be replaced when it breaks down." He paused and gestured toward the photographs spread across his desk. "You're also the only one who's built something lasting and meaningful everywhere you've worked, despite having a wife who's been systematically destroying your confidence for years. And because that woman currently entertaining herself at Sterling's house is about to learn what happens when you throw away something genuine for something shiny and ultimately worthless." I opened the second envelope with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. Legal documents transferring ownership of assets worth tens of millions of dollars. active contracts for projects I'd only dreamed of managing: shopping centers, office complexes, medical facilities, educational buildings, bank account information, with balances that made my current annual salary look like pocket change. "There's one important condition," Vincent said quietly, leaning forward with his elbows on the desk. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to walk into Sterling's house during their little breakfast gathering and show your wife and all her new wealthy friends exactly who Cameron Pierce really is. Not the blue-collar guy they think they can dismiss and look down on, but the man who now owns the company that built half the commercial real estate in Phoenix." I spent the rest of that night in Vincent's office, reading through contracts and learning the full scope of what I was inheriting. Brennan Construction had active projects throughout Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico. We employed over 450 people directly, with another 800 working for our regular subcontractors. We'd built shopping centers where families shopped, office buildings where people worked, hospitals where children were born, schools where kids learned to read. Our reputation in the industry was absolutely spotless. Vincent had spent 5 decades building relationships based on integrity, fair dealing, and delivering exactly what we promised when we promised it. No corners cut, no shortcuts taken, no compromises on safety or quality standards. By sunrise, I understood what Vincent had given me. Not just financial security or business ownership, but the power to completely redefine who Cameron Pierce was in this city, in this industry, in the eyes of everyone who'd underestimated me. The next morning, I drove my F-150 to Sterling's house in Paradise Valley, wearing my cleanest jeans and a pressed button-down shirt, carrying a leather portfolio that contained documents proving I now owned one of Arizona's most successful construction companies. The same expensive cars from the previous evening were still parked outside, though a few had left and been replaced by others. I walked up the stone pathway to Sterling's massive front door with more confidence than I'd felt in years, knowing that everything was about to change permanently. I rang the doorbell and waited, listening to voices and laughter from inside, the sound of people who had no idea their world was about to be turned completely upside down. Sterling answered the door himself, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking surprised and clearly annoyed to see someone who obviously didn't belong in his social circle standing on his doorstep. "Can I help you with something?" "I'm Cameron Pierce. I'm here to collect my wife and have a conversation with everyone inside about business relationships." Sterling's face went noticeably pale. Behind him, I could see people scattered around his enormous living room, obviously still recovering from their evening of excess and indulgence, including Sophia, who froze completely when she saw me standing in the doorway like an avenging angel. "Cameron," she said, walking toward me, slowly, her voice a mixture of panic and defiance. "I can explain everything that's been happening. This isn't what it looks like. No need for explanation, Sophia." I opened my portfolio and handed her the ownership transfer documents, watching her eyes widen as she read Vincent's signature and the corporate seal. "I just wanted to let you and everyone here know that the blue-collar husband you're so embarrassed by just became the owner of Brennan Construction." The room went completely silent, except for the sound of expensive coffee cups being set down on glass tables. Sterling stepped back involuntarily, suddenly realizing he was dealing with someone far more powerful than the construction worker he'd assumed I was. "That's the company that built this house you're so impressed with," I continued calmly, my voice carrying clearly across the marble foyer. "The company that built half the commercial real estate your new friends make their money from. The company that employs more people than most of the businesses represented in this room combined." Sophia looked around desperately at all those wealthy men who'd been so impressive 12 hours earlier, men who were suddenly very interested in their phones, their breakfast, anything except the woman they'd been happy to entertain when she came with no strings attached. "Sophia, you have exactly 2 choices," I said, closing my portfolio with deliberate finality. "You can come home with me right now, and we can attempt to rebuild our marriage based on honesty, respect, and realistic expectations. Or you can stay here with these people, and I'll file for divorce Monday morning, while simultaneously reviewing which of their businesses might lose their construction contracts with my company." She stared at me like I'd become a completely different person, which in many ways I had. The man standing in Sterling's doorway wasn't the same guy who'd been apologizing for his modest income, and working class background for the past several years. Cameron, I need time to think about this situation. Time's up, Sophia. You made your choice when you lied about girls' night and showed up here instead. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't good enough, because I built buildings instead of manipulating stock portfolios or inheriting trust funds from wealthy parents. I turned toward the door, then paused for dramatic effect, looking back over my shoulder at the room full of people who'd just witnessed their social hierarchy get completely demolished. Enjoy your new life, Sophia. Try not to think about what you threw away when you're looking for your next wealthy benefactor. I walked out of that house and never looked back, feeling lighter with every step. Within a week, Sophia had moved out of our home, taking only her personal belongings and whatever dignity she had left. She tried calling dozens of times over the following weeks, leaving increasingly desperate. Messages about misunderstandings, poor decisions influenced by too much wine, and lessons learned the hard way. But I was done listening to explanations and excuses, done accepting apologies for behavior that revealed someone's true character when they thought it wouldn't matter. The divorce was finalized 4 months later, ironically on the same day we completed our largest commercial project in company history, a mixed-use development in downtown Phoenix that would house offices, retail spaces, and luxury condominiums. Sophia received half of everything we'd accumulated during our marriage, which turned out to be substantial considering my new position and the company's value. But she also received the devastating realization that she'd destroyed her relationship with a man who turned out to be far more successful than any of the men she'd tried to replace him with. Running Brennan Construction turned out to be both more challenging and more rewarding than I'd ever imagined. Vincent had built something truly special, not just a business, but a reputation for integrity that opened doors throughout the Southwest. Our clients trusted us completely because we'd never given them reason not to. Our employees stayed with us for decades because we treated them like family members rather than replaceable equipment. I made it a point to personally visit every active job site at least twice a month, not to micromanage, but to show the crews that their work mattered, that someone in authority understood what they were going through. I still wore steel-toed boots and hard hats, still got concrete dust under my fingernails, still solved problems that threatened to derail million-dollar projects. The difference was that now I was solving those problems as the owner of the company, not just another project manager hoping to make a good impression. 8 months after everything changed, I happened to be walking past that upscale steakhouse in Old Town Scottsdale, where I had first witnessed Sophia's betrayal with Sterling. I stopped on the sidewalk and looked through the large windows, watching well-dressed couples celebrate over expensive wine and overpriced steaks. I remembered sitting in my truck across the street, feeling smaller and more worthless than I'd ever felt in my entire life, watching my wife choose wealth over loyalty. But standing there now, I didn't feel anger or bitterness anymore. Instead, I felt genuinely grateful because that horrible night had forced me to see the truth clearly, had stripped away everything fake and superficial in my life. I'd been pouring all my energy into someone who didn't deserve it, trying desperately to be enough for someone who would never be satisfied no matter what I achieved. 6 months later, Vincent passed away quietly in his sleep at age 75, surrounded by family members who'd learned to appreciate him before it was too late. The funeral was large and emotional, filled with business associates, former employees, and community leaders whose lives he'd touched through 5 decades of honest work. I gave the eulogy, my voice steady despite my emotions, talking about the unconventional lessons he'd taught me through his calculated patience. By letting me struggle without intervention, by forcing me to prove myself under impossible circumstances, he'd given me something infinitely more valuable than money could buy. He'd given me the unshakable confidence to know I could survive anything life threw at me. Sophia tried to attend Vincent's funeral, probably thinking it was an appropriate opportunity to attempt reconciliation. I had our security team turn her away at the entrance before she could even get inside the building. She'd lost the right to be part of my life when she chose to publicly humiliate the man who devoted 14 years to building something with her. I saw her one final time, about 18 months after that anniversary of discovery. She was dining alone at a restaurant in Scottsdale, dressed expensively, but looking tired and defeated in a way that expensive clothes couldn't hide. I was there celebrating the completion of our largest project ever, a medical complex that would serve thousands of families throughout the valley. She tried to approach my table, tried to start a conversation about second chances and hard-learned lessons, about how money wasn't everything and character mattered more than social status. I treated her with the same polite indifference I'd show any stranger who interrupted my dinner, because that's exactly what she'd become. A stranger who'd once shared my bed but never understood my worth until it was too late to matter. The fundamental truth I learned from this entire experience is elegantly simple. Your value as a human being has absolutely nothing to do with other people's ability to recognize it. Sophia desperately wanted wealth, status, and social acceptance from people who ultimately didn't matter. She threw away something genuine and lasting for something artificial and temporary. As for me, I gained everything I actually needed, not just Vincent's company and financial security, but the unshakable knowledge that I don't need anyone's validation to know my worth. That integrity and hard work will always matter more than designer labels and luxury vehicles. And honestly, that's worth more than any inheritance could ever be. Some lessons can only be learned through betrayal, and some gifts can only be received after you've proven you deserve them.